Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another episode of the Cons Cast, and today I'm here with Arekkz to talk about Elden Ring. We've been both playing the Elden Ring closed network test, and I'd like to get your take on it. How do you feel about it? What was like your overall experience?
I mean, overall, I was blown away. Like, firstly, I mean, I feel like you said this as well, but like I did not expect, like when they were like there's a closed network test, I was like, all right, I'm gonna load in, probably gonna fight a boss, run down like a corridor, do a couple of things, maybe go and explore one cave, and that'll be it. And they'll be like, thanks for playing. I was like, why did they give?
Was this your first network test or no? Or have you done the ones before, like for Bloodborne?
I haven't actually. No.
So this was your first one.
Yeah.
So let me tell you the network tests usually. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. It's like
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Usually the network tests when it comes to Souls games, they last about like an hour or so. So you're not the only one who was surprised. Like I was in a chat where I was talking with a lot of people that also had access, and it was wild because everybody's going like, dude, it took me like 8 hours. It took me 10 hours, and then after we've played all of these hours, we're still like, oh, there's still this thing we haven't discovered. Oh, look, there's this item over here. There's another thing over there. And people were going, wow, there's so much content in this network test.
I was blown away. I mean, like, literally, I mean, I think by the end of it, I played about 10 hours. So for me, and it's funny because, you know, when I spoke to you on the weekend, like, I'd already done quite a few. I've written myself a list. I was like, oh, I feel great. I've done all these things. I've encountered like 6 or 7 things. I was like, I'm going to come to him and be like, yeah, I've found everything. You're like, there's a bajillion more things. Like, you what? So yeah, honestly, I was blown away. And the thing that excites me the most outside of this as well is just because I know they've said this is their biggest, you know, scope game to date. So if the network test is this vast, like, take away those anima-style invisible walls that are blocking us right now, I cannot wait to just see the amount of content that there's going to be in this game, because I'm getting like I made it, not the compare. I know people aren't always a fan of comparisons, but like when I play Breath of the Wild, because I love this game, like when I explore and the thing that I liked about Elden Ring, right, from the network test, is that it's one of those games that has a lot of areas to explore and you're rewarded for exploring. I hate open world games where they're like, we've got a big map and you wander somewhere and there's nothing there. But in Elden Ring and in Breath of the Wild, every time you're like, that looks kind of cool over there, and you go there and there's something and you're like, thank you for rewarding me for actually going off the path.
Yeah, it's something that they traditionally do with Dark Souls, which is, I mean, with previous Souls games even, where it's like, yeah, there's big maps. Dark Souls 2 a little bit less, but the other Souls games, there's usually big maps as well, not as big as what we have here, right? But there's always like a reward for you to explore a little bit off the beaten path and go off and do your own thing. And there's definitely tons and tons and tons of that. So we were actually supposed to co-op this weekend, but we weren't able to connect, which I was so sad. I was super excited. I had like this little adventure planned out and stuff.
Yeah. I was looking forward to it. You still guided me through it though. But yeah, we'll just have to save that for when it actually launches, because I definitely want to do some co-op stuff.
Yeah, you didn't actually get to try out the co-op then, I would imagine.
No, not at all. No.
Okay. So I know from our previous conversation we talked about Souls, like your experience with Souls before and whatnot. And if you guys are curious, there's already like another video in the channel to check that out. But like, I know that you were hyped for Elden Ring. You're already hyped going into this. Both of us were pretty hyped. What I'm curious is, were your expectations met, or were they like exceeded by playing the network test?
So exceeded incredibly so, because it's one of those things where I mean, I think because I just didn't realize the scope of like that, the freedom and all the stuff that there was going to be to explore. So I think the fact that it's ticked off that box for me, because I like, correct me if I'm wrong, like I know in like previous Souls games anyway, there's, you know, again, you're rewarded for exploring. There's a degree of freedom, but I mean, would I be right to say that they're not open? They're also not linear, but they're, you know what I mean? Like, there's kind of a somewhat relatively guided path to a degree.
It's like there's also a guided path in this one, right? But the idea is the most open Dark Souls game before this one, in my opinion, and some people are probably going to disagree with this, is Dark Souls 1, because I consider that game to be like one of the most interconnected ones, on account of the fact that you're not really warping all over the place at the beginning of the game. You're actually, you know, you're going through the levels, and these levels are interconnected. And technically speaking, like say when you first get to Firelink Shrine, I can think of like, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I can think of 3 paths that you can instantly go to. You can go down into some ruins, you can go into the catacombs, or you can go to like the big aqueduct, which is your main thing. So it is open, but it's like you have these 3 paths that you can go to. Whereas here it's like, hey, I don't know, dude, look, there's in this test, I think there were like 5 or 6 dungeons in the map. You can go to any of those. Go have fun.
That's the thing, yeah.
Or you can follow the main path, you know, just do whatever you want. But yeah, this one's got the most freedom of all of them.
And I think that's what I really like, because I like you know, I don't play. Sometimes I find that level of freedom in some games quite daunting, and I'm just like, I don't have the time for that. I want to be guided. I like the fact that that's the option here. But there are some games, like specifically Breath of the Wild and now Elden Ring, where I walked. You know that moment where you lift up the iron door at the beginning of the tutorial. You see the lands between. The golden tree is there, and I'm just like, I want to be like when I finished playing, I'm just like, I just want to be in this world. I know that, like, from speaking to you, at that point I ticked off most of the things that you can do. So I'm like, there's probably not much more for me to do, but I just want to be in this world.
Yeah.
And that is like, that I think is a testament to, you know, just how fantastic it feels just to explore, just to move around in that game.
It's a big wow moment when you first open that door. Like I myself, because I was actually recording with Facecam for the first couple of hours that I was playing, and like when that door opened, I was just like,
yeah.
Because and here's the worst part about it, because and this is something that I'm going to be mentioning a lot through videos, I'm sure, but it's the fact that you can tell this to people and they can watch a video, like if they don't have access to test, because not everybody's going to have access to test, right? And they can watch videos about it, they can watch gameplay about it. They're still not going to get the same vibe that you get opening that iron door and then just like looking around and going like,
yeah. Well, because it's interesting because they showed that scene in the 15 minutes of gameplay, and you're right. Like I was when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, the second you actually physically do it, and you've kind of got that slow motion of lifting the door, and you're just like, this is where I get to explore. I'm like, let me go. I want to go everywhere. So yeah, I'm blown away by this game, and I've like, you know, I've since kind of getting into Souls, even though it's quite late, I always look forward to the new ones, but I feel like this is the most excited I have been for a new Souls type game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I really like the fact that, you know, in these games they never really hold your hand too much. Like they'll like we said, there is guidance for those of you that are like, oh, I don't want to get too lost in the map. Yeah, you can go to the sites of Lost Grace, which act like the bonfires essentially, and some of them will have like a ray of light telling you, hey, listen, this is where we expect you to eventually go, but go there whenever you want. Like the first thing that I did, I was like, I looked around. I'm like, okay, there's a site of grace over there. I'm going to rest. I'm going to talk to this NPC. And now I'm just going to go to the left. For no particular, I'm just going to go this way. Instantly, big giant dude with a sword. And I'm fighting him like, this is exactly what I want. This is perfect.
Yeah, that was yeah. I think the very first thing that I did was like, I was straight out of the thing. I'm like, oh, there's this golden guy on a horse. I'm like, let me just fight this guy. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done? And then I discovered the spirit summons, and I was like, ha ha, I got you now, man. So that was fun.
So you bypassed him a little bit on the first time that you went through, right?
Yeah. I basically attempted him a few times. He clapped me completely, and then I started to learn the value of the spirit summons, and then I feel like I can't really say I defeated him. My wolves did half the health. I did the other half, so I've half defeated him.
That's fair. I don't think that you're supposed to defeat. I mean, you can obviously, but I don't think they intend you to like, oh, just go out the door, go kill big golden dude on horse. He's just supposed to be there, I think, to kind of teach you about the stealth mechanic, where it's like, hey, there's some bushes strategically placed right here that you can kind of just like crouch through and completely get away from him.
I definitely didn't pay attention to that.
Did you use stealth at all?
Yeah, but more so just like when I was kind of just going up towards the camp, and then you know the first camp you get to with all the soldiers, and there's the area where you get the map fragment. There I kind of had some fun just sort of stealthing around, testing out the enemies. But I haven't used it like too much, but I do like that it is definitely like a cool option.
It's an option, and I think there was even a tutorial message that said something about your first attack will deal more damage, even if it's not like a backstab or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, Did you do any spell casting at all, or did you focus mostly on melee? Did you try out any of the spells?
So I did try them out just at the end. Basically, I spent pretty much all of my 10 hours playing as the Blood Wolf, just because it's like my kind of playstyle. But towards the end, I then loaded in as all the different presets just to kind of test out their loadouts briefly. So I have limited experience. So I wouldn't say I've kind of gone through and played with them extensively, but I got to test out the flaming dragon head, which was super cool. And I also got to test out the two abilities that you get with the is it called Mystical Knight or whatever it is?
Enchanted Knight, I think.
That's it, yeah. And the one where he summons like the
sword.
big great sword that stabs forward. Ooh, that was so cool.
That thing is actually also very good in PvP, I think, because I was fighting someone and they were able to hit me quite consistently with that, and I was like, that feels really, really powerful. I don't know about that.
Yeah. You know what? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it might be a slight tangent, but I'm interested to see because obviously I've never dabbled too heavily in like builds per se in Soul Games. I just play like my I put a load of stuff in health, stamina, and just roll and survive. But that being said, I'm quite interested to see, because now that we have weapon skills, which I'm sure we'll speak more about in a second, I'm interested to see, like, from a setup point of view, you can, like, if you're someone that's like a caster, you can have a spell, you can have spirit summons, you can have a weapon and an offhand weapon with weapon skills on themselves. You're going to have quite a lot of things in your arsenal.
Yeah, but everybody gets summons, not just the spellcaster. But
it
is interesting. It is interesting that you mentioned that, because this was a point that was brought to me in another discussion. Because I'm actually doing these videos out of order, but in another discussion that I had with Fighting Cowboy, I brought up the fact that for casters it's always a little bit challenging, because you're like, if you want to do your cast, particularly if it's a long cast and you're fighting a boss. And especially in this game where bosses are super fast and swinging mega wildly and whatnot, it can get really challenging. And that's kind of like a place where the summons are really useful, because they can kind of distract the boss so that you can channel your cast. So yeah, you're right. The casters, they have their weapon arts, which can also be spells, essentially. Like, I don't know if I showed you that magic spell that you can use that summons like 4 swords around you, and then...
Yeah.
That in previous games, that spell I think is called the Homeward Soul Mass, if I remember correctly, because I'm also not a big spell guy. But they do have a lot of tools in their arsenal, and it is pretty interesting. And there's going to be tons of build diversity when it comes to that stuff. It's going to be pretty friggin' wild.
And the fact that you can have the weapon skills on like your weapon, your offhand weapon, your bow, and your shield, I'm just like, that's a lot. That's really cool.
And here's the thing, not only that, but like you can equip 3 weapons in each hand, basically, and then swap between. Yeah, it's 3 weapons in each hand, or weapons, shields, spell tools, cattles, whatever. There's 6 of them, 3 for each hand, and you can basically swap between to get like your spells, your casting stuff, and whatnot. This was also present. This was also present in previous games. But yeah, it's going to be wild, just the amount of crazy stuff that people are going to be able to do, especially because of the way that you two-hand weapons in this game. Did you find that awkward at all? Two-handed weapons?
As in just like using them, or you just mean like the switching?
Swapping between one hand and two-hand.
The very first time I pressed it just like a couple of times I was kind of getting used to it, like, because obviously I completely missed it, because I was doing it in my Let's Play, and I was recording the first part, and I completely missed the tooltip, and I was like, it said something about triangle and L1, but I got the combination mixed. So for ages I didn't do it, and then you were like, this is how you do it. But once I got my head used to like, I'll hold this and do that, I was doing it quite smoothly, and I was using two-handing quite a lot. So after a while, like I think it's it was different to begin with, but then it kind of became pretty natural.
Yeah, okay. I was curious about that, because that is something that I'm still not 100% sure how I feel, because the modifier button also is used for interacting with stuff. So if you happen to did that happen to you as well?
Because when I was doing my like, let me test all the Ashes of War, I was just doing it by a site of grace, and I kept on just going back to the site of grace. I'm like, I don't want to sit down. I just want to use this. So exactly. That is definitely an interesting thing. But yeah, I didn't. Luckily, after a while, it didn't kind of trip me out too much. Although I will say, there's a couple of times I would just press the wrong button. I'm like, I didn't mean to two-hand my shield. I meant to get my sword. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit different than what we're used to in Souls, but I think that people can get used to it fairly easily once you know the button combination. The problem still is the fact that, like, if you're fighting on top of a blood pool, or on top of a message, and you're going to be trying to swap between your weapons, and it's going to be just like, oh, let me read this message instead, or trigger this lever over here, or open this door that I'm fighting right next. It's like, no. I
hadn't thought of it like that, actually. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a plan to deal with that, but yeah, I'm hoping they do something about that, because it's going to be pretty wild if they don't.
Yeah, especially like PvP, and like, so maybe someone might strategically roll over like a message just to try and mess you up or something.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I don't think that in PvP it's going to be as huge of a problem as just like in the middle of PvE. I think that is when it's going to be really wild.
Yeah, true.
How did you feel about the Spectral steed? Because that's definitely one of the big new things.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, just the freedom. So there's a couple of things that I really liked. One of the ones I only discovered near the end. Like, obviously, Souls games have fantastic sound design. Recently, someone reminded me, they linked me that clip. I can't remember which one it's from, but like, of previous Souls game, was it Bloodborne? Someone's sliding down a ladder with like a triangle helmet, and the helmet hits every single one of the rungs on the way down. It's just a fantastic sound thing. But then but it reminded me, because when you told me to get that big bronze greatsword from the chest. When you do heavy attack on the horse and you hold it, it just drags across the ground and it goes and you hear it hitting like all the tiles before he swings it up. So like just the feeling for that was so cool.
And I think that those things where he's dragging it through the ground, I think those actually count as hits as well. So like if you drag that over an enemy, I think it'll probably do it.
Oh, that's cool.
I haven't really tested the big sword too much on horseback, because I was just obsessed with doing the lance. Because the lance will put you like in a poking position. And interesting, it'll deal damage even if you're not moving the horse. So you can just stand next to an enemy, poke him, and it goes like...
That's amazing. I never actually tried that, yeah.
And then it'll break their guard, and the final hit is like an upward swing. So it'll just like actually launch them into the air.
Amazing.
It's really fun.
That is so cool. But yeah, no, I mean, but outside of that, just the freedom to explore again. Like it's really nice, the fact that you can kind of just organically use it, or if you get in trouble, you can just like call your horse, just quickly be like, "I'm out, see you later." I like that. I like that a lot. It was definitely but I do like how it's not something you can like fully abuse, because there's certain areas where you can't be on horseback. So I'm riding and I'm just like, I'm gonna ride into this cave, and it's like, no, you're not.
No. Whenever you get into a dungeon, basically the horse goes away. Whether that's a regular dungeon or a legacy dungeon, and there's also another thing, which is if you get invaded or you do co-op, you can't summon the horse.
Oh, okay. Alright, that's cool. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it would have been kind of cool co-op, two horses just roaming around, but I can understand that.
I even think that it would be cool to just have PvP with the horse, but I think that they were like, with our multiplayer, this is going to be way too hard to balance and to do proper, so let's just not go down that road. Yeah, but like, just imagine a jousting match.
Ooh, that would be so cool. That would be amazing.
Just straight up jousting would be friggin' awesome. So, did you get to try out the guard counter, which is another new thing that they've added to the game?
So I really like this. I've said it many times before, like we had this discussion the other day, but I am very bad at parrying, right? And I have in my entire 10 hours of playing, I did get a single parry, so I've at least ticked one parry in the tutorial section. I'm not sure if that counts, but one parry. But then I really like the guard counter, because I feel like it's a I mean, again, you can probably sort of correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel obviously it's not as safe as the parry, in that once you pull it off, you're still not, you can still be hit. Yeah. Because at first I was like, oh, this is going to be easy, I can just block and do this, and then suddenly I fought enemies that have like flurry attacks. It's like, oh, I can still get hit during it. Yeah. So you do need to be sensible, but I think it's nice to have like another option for someone that might not be so good at parrying. You can be like, okay, I'm just going to play defensively for a bit and then wait for the last hit and be like, bam. And it also works on bosses on like some moves, right? So yeah, I actually really like it. I think it's a very cool mechanic.
It definitely feels good, because previously in Souls games, blocking is almost like a punishing thing, because you could have dodged that hit. If you knew how to do it, you could have dodged that hit, and then you could have countered. You could have like not be where the boss was hitting, but instead you blocked, and that just costed you your stamina, and that's it. Whereas in this game, it's actually going to be a choice. Like, I actually want to block, so that then I do this big powerful move to attack them back. And at the same time, I don't think it's going to be. I think a lot of people are going to look at it as like, oh, this is just parry for noobs, right? I think a lot of people are going to look at it like that, and I don't think that's the case, because like you said. you're still going to have to know the patterns at the end of the day. You're going to have to be able, okay, is there going to be another swing? Is there not going to be another swing? Is it safe to do? And then you're going to have, it's still a risk-reward type thing.
Yeah, 100% that, because there's so many times when I was sort of like learning to use it properly, where I would try and guard counter and I would just get punished for it. It's like, no, you can't use it here. Don't be an idiot. I'm like, okay, sorry. So yeah, I do think there's gonna be place for both, right? I mean, obviously you're still gonna have those epic moments where someone goes and parries a boss and it's just like, haha. But then I just definitely think that guard counter, being able to like maybe sort of last minute, like you're getting hammered by a boss, like quickly, and then you can follow up. Like I think that's quite nice. Like, I actually ended up using that on the boss that you kind of told me to fight, like when you go to the circle and you kind of get taken into the little arena area. Like obviously I kept on failing it when we were on call, but then I finished it afterwards, and instead of just trying to like spam weapon specials, I was like, I'm gonna use guard counter, and that ended up being how I would defeat him, because I would just let him do his flurry, and on the final hit I'd just be like bam, and then go again. So that was actually like great for me.
Yeah, and here's the thing, because like that guard counter will trigger like instant riposte states on a lot of enemies, but not all of them.
Yeah.
So it's like you can, there's a lot of times, I'm not sure if you've done this or not, but you basically, when you do the guard counter and you hit like one of the lesser enemies, you'll hear the noise that goes like, right?
Oh,
that
yeah,
means
yeah.
That means that you've opened them up for a riposte, and if instead of instantly following up with another attack, if you move up to them and you press R1, then your character actually does like a finishing move.
Oh yeah, right? On a
Did you do that?
Not on that, but it was a similar thing, because you know a similar kind of thing where when you can like knock a boss into like that down state, and sometimes there's a special interaction. I had the most emotional moment. I was fighting the big dragon, right? And I had the carrying glint sword, so the massive like spirit giant great sword you can summon. So I used this move, and I swung down and I hit him in the face, and it knocked him on the floor. I was like, this is my chance to stab him in the eye. But in my hurry, I ran over and I'm swinging my sword, and I'm like, no, I missed it. So I missed the eye stab. He got up and killed me, and I'm like, no, this was supposed to be the moment. And then I never managed to down him again.
So let me try to explain to you how that's supposed to work. It's like they want you to not just be wildly swinging your weapons so that you can recognize when there is an opening, and then you stop swinging, you move closer so that your character's actually like touching the enemy that's like in a position to be riposted, and then you do the visceral attack. So you would have to, you can't just like run up there, quick, let's go, let's attack.
The thing is, it was one of those ones where like, my mind was processing. I was like, I know I need to stop swinging. This is not going to work. So I'm trying to stop the swinging, and then by the time I did that, he started moving. I was like, no. So yeah, I did manage to defeat him though. I had one of the most epic battles with that dragon, where I kid you not, I was fighting for ages. I died many times, but on the final one, I got into about half health. I'd used all my potions. He got me to the point where I had a pixel, like you couldn't see my health, and for the rest of the fight, I'm dodging everything perfectly, because I'm just like, if he even breathes on me, I'm dead. And I finished it, and I was like, I have literally no health. Like you would look at it and be like, is this a bug? Why is this guy still alive? So I don't know how I did that. I went into like Matrix mode or something.
You went into Ultra Instinct Arekkz, dude. You channeled the Ultra Instinct. But yeah, those are some of the most special moments when it comes to Souls, where you're just like, oh, I'm about to die. I'm probably going to fail this. And then you just like start dodging everything and start leaving. And yeah, it's like, because I don't know what it is, but when you're low on health, for some reason, a lot of times you'll start to like, okay, now I can really see the pattern. I can see the matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see everything. Yeah.
It's so true.
That's some really good stuff. Did you experiment a lot with jumping attacks at all?
I actually did quite a bit. I'll be honest, I don't understand necessarily their value as such. I just did them because they felt really satisfying. I was like, this is cool. Yeah. I would just jump and go heavy attack all the time. I know on smaller enemies it's a good way to break their guard, but I would actually sometimes use it on bosses. Like when I was fighting the Golden Horse guy, I would just like jump and slap him on the back, and a couple of times it put him into like a down state. So I guess it must have a higher hit value or something.
It has a higher stagger value. Almost like, think of jumping attacks almost like hammer attacks in Monster Hunter, pretty much.
Oh, well, that's great.
Because in previous Souls games, we had this thing, which is the kick, where you would basically just press forward and R1. I'm not sure if you did this in Dark Souls 3 or not, but if you press forward and R1, your character will actually just do like a big boot kick forwards. And this is how you would break guard on enemies that would have shields and stuff. You just like
Okay.
kick them, and that would put them into that down state sometimes, and then you'd be able to punish them. And in this game, you don't really have the kick in the same manner that you had in previous Souls games. So what they did was they were like, okay, jumping attacks have a very similar effect to the kick, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They just do
I
a
like
ton
them.
of stagger. Yeah.
I feel like because for me, I mean that's another like Zelda-y thing. I just feel like Link being like yeah, and just like doing that. So I mean, there's also many times where I did that and it got me punished as a result. Like I feel
yeah.
I was doing many stupid jump attacks, but I was like, this just feels good. Like honestly, that's the other thing I like about like the freedom of a. I've said this in any game. I just like having a jump button. Any game, like I just like the freedom to just, even if it doesn't make sense, if I'm just bunny hopping around looking like an idiot, I'm just like, I like jumping. Jumping and grappling hooks are two things that make me very happy.
Jumping is, it makes you feel, I don't know, it makes you feel more in control of your character, even if it doesn't do a whole lot, which is interesting. Like, just a little side thing, but like the first version of Final Fantasy XIV, the one that failed, didn't have a jump button. You literally couldn't jump.
That's why it failed.
Exactly.
I'll be like, instant refund.
But it was funny because there was like a news reporter that asked the game director at the time, it wasn't Yoshida, he asked the game director and he was like, we heard that your MMO does not have a jump button, is this true? Like, why? And the dude laughed at him. Like, the director laughed at him. He was just like, why do you need a jump button? It's like, what?
No.
Apparently you did need one. The game failed pretty bad. But
Exactly.
it's like, I don't think you need a jump in every game, but specifically in this one where you have an open world and, you know, it just feels better to be able to like, oh, there's a rocky thing over there. Let's see if I can jump over and move over to, it gives you a greater degree of freedom. I think it was important for them to do that for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Now,
it's going to open up like the exploration side of stuff as well, right? Like, you know, we saw even just in the 15 minutes of gameplay they showed, like jumping through the castle through like windows that you normally just wouldn't be able to take that path. I think is cool.
Yeah, and it's very, and here's the thing, it's very fluid because like, I don't know if you've done any jumping in Dark Souls 3, but jumping in the game, Dark Souls games before this was so bad.
You know,
So
not at all. I mean, to the point where I actually didn't even remember there was a jump button.
Yeah, there isn't a jump button. That's the point. But you can jump, and as a matter of fact, there are certain things that you would only be able to get to if you did jump, and it was just a complete pain unless you had like tons and tons of practice. But the idea was you would run, and then you would press the dodge button, and your character, instead of dodging, would jump. But it's like it's a little jump. It's like a lot of forward momentum, but almost no vertical momentum. It was like it's like a long hop, and
okay.
Yeah, it was very frustrating, particularly like in Dark Souls. Now I'm giving you like a little bit of a history lesson. In Dark Souls 1, when the PC version came around, there was this guy who did a mod that would let you run at 60 FPS.
Okay.
But because the game wasn't prepared to run at 60 FPS, your jumps would be smaller. So things that I had previously done on PlayStation 3, I remember at one point I was recording a playthrough and I'm just like, dude, I've done this jump a million friggin' times. I can't do this jump right now. What's going on? And then eventually, like much later, I realized, oh, you only jump like half the normal if you're running the game at 60. So I would have to like swap between 30 FPS and 60 FPS when I do jumps. But yeah, that was some crazy stuff. But now I'm about to blow your mind. I'm about to blow your mind. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
So, what if I told you that you could do a jump attack, but you could dual wield weapons and hit with both weapons at the same time?
Oh.
Like a barbarian.
No, is that because? So I dabbled briefly in the warrior and being able to like you press L1 R1 to like swing both swords. Is that how it works? Like you just
yes, but what you have to do because this is something that. I don't think they've done this. They've only did this in like Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 3 had certain weapons where when you swap the two-hand mode, they would dual wield instead of two-handing, but it would be like one weapon. It's one weapon, you equip it, and then you press the button, it dual wields instead of two-handing. But in Dark Souls 2, there was a thing where you would be able to equip two different weapons, but of the same type, and then you'd two-hand them, and you would go into this thing called the power stance. So they've kind of introduced that in Elden Ring. So say if you were to equip two battle axes or two great swords or two straight swords, then you press L1, instead of just doing like your offhand weapon, it will do an attack with both weapons.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's very cool. Okay.
that's something for you to play around with, maybe on the public test or whatever, or when the
So
game
just
actually
jump in and just be
comes
like,
out.
"Hey-ya!"
Yeah, you can just straight up jump with 2 great swords and dunk on enemies. It's pretty.
That
wild.
is amazing. That is amazing. I do wish there was a, like, I mean, it probably wouldn't be functional, but like in a true Zelda fashion, I wish if I had the single-handed greatsword and I did a jump attack, instead of just going like that, it was like a sword plunge. That would be cool. But it wouldn't really work in the conventional sense. Normally you need to just drop off a ledge to plunge, whereas like, I just basically want to be able to like Soul Calibur 2 Link, jump up and be like, huh!
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. There might be like a weapon art that does something like that. We don't know because some weapon arts are doing some pretty wild stuff. Like I showed you the great sword where it just like spins around like.
That was the damage that does is, you know what, honestly, that is one of the things that excites me the most as well, because just from a sheer collection point of view, like I just enjoyed going through the demo, defeating bosses, or killing the treasure dung beetles or the teardrop scarabs, and getting those. So like that sense of just like, oh, I've got a new one, I want to go see what it does. And I mean, okay, some of them are basic and some of them are, you know, but whenever you get like the really cool ones, like I just love that collection aspect of it. So I feel like that's gonna incentivize me to explore even more, because like, you know, there's going to be some ridiculous ones where someone's like, oh yeah, if you go off this island and climb a tower and do something really, really different, like specific, you'll find this megaton giant. Like, I want, you know, when you fight the guy in Stormwind Castle, like that golden hammer he's got, I want that.
Oh,
The spirit hammer.
There might be some kind of like a weapon skill that does that, but I'm not.
That would be cool.
Again, it's like they sometimes do some weird stuff with weapon skills, which personally I liked seeing. I thought that they were a lot of fun, but you know, those weapons though, the ones that have the more exotic weapon skills, you can't change them.
True.
They're kind of stuck with them, whereas other weapons you can kind of like play around and swap them and whatnot. So you've played with the Ashes of War a little bit. You were telling me you tested it out. Which ones did you think were the most interesting, minus the special 2 ones, which is the, I'm not sure. Did you get the lightning katana or no?
I
think you did.
Yeah, I did. Yes, the
we
frost
went
lightning
to the
one.
cave.
Yeah.
So you got minus that one and minus the great sword, which is a big spinny and explosion. Which ones were the other arts that you thought were kind of interesting?
So I like the one that you mentioned earlier that summons the spirit like swords around you as well, that can just like home in on people. That was kind of cool. Yeah. The one that I did actually like, I wouldn't necessarily use it too much. Like it's when we were like chatting and I was playing, and I got that one called like gravitas, and like initially like, you know, it's not as interesting, but I was like, what does it do? And I went over to the enemies. It's actually quite cool because you summon it, and it's just like a black hole. It pulls the enemies towards you. They trip over.
Isn't it like very small? Because I remember testing that one out, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, it's not something that I would actually be like, I'm going to use this and give up my slot. Yeah. I just thought and it also has like a very limited use case. Like, you're not really going to use it on anything but maybe like a few trash mobs, which, let's be honest, you don't need to spec for them anyway. But I just thought it was quite cool because it's like I'd see like a knight running up to me, so I start summoning it, and as soon as he gets close, he gets pulled in, trips over, and I'm like, bam. So I thought that was quite cool.
Did you get him into a down state?
I don't know whether it's like actually downstate, but it's in a similar sort of like a loose hit stun. Like if you sort of hit him and he like marginally staggered.
He staggered a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I thought that was quite cool. And then just thinking.
Did you try the Thor lightning one?
Oh yes, the one that comes by default on the sword. That was cool. That was very because I completely like skipped over that one at first, and I went back to test it and just like zapped a few enemies, and straight away they're just like, oh, they're dead. Like, okay, this was cool.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun, and the cool thing about it, like I don't know if you look too much at the stats of the weapons, because like I'll tell you right now, the Ashes of War system in this game is one of my favorite things that they've implemented in from many Souls games, because previously if you wanted to have like a lightning weapon, you'd have to upgrade it towards a certain path, and it would be like a permanent thing, right? You're like, okay, so I want this to be a lightning weapon, and it would just be a lightning weapon, and that's it. And if you're fighting an enemy that is strong against lightning, that weapon is pretty much useless. Like, it'll still deal damage, but it's going to be such a little amount that it's whatever. Yeah. And the fact that in this game, you can just take that out. And it's not even a consumable. It's not like you're destroying it by taking it out. It's like, no, you have this forever. So it's like, I'll just take this. It's like a gem, basically. Yeah. That you take out of the weapon, and now I put in a new one. And it's like, oh, this guy is strong against lightning. Maybe I'll put in a fire Ashes of War. And boom, now it deals fire damage and it does a fire ability and it's done. And to me, that was just like, dude, this is amazing.
Yeah, I love that as well. I think, I mean, obviously, I didn't have too much experience with the whole like weapon type. You know, I don't think I ever kind of went that deeply into the system, but I just like it from a fact of like we mentioned before. I'm not normally like a magic type person, right? I just use melee weapons. I feel like this is that great halfway house where it's like even if you don't want to invest into like spells, but you're like this is like feel like melee users magic, so to speak. You're just like, oh, I'm gonna have a few cool things that I can do even if I don't want to spec into spells. So yeah, it is such a cool system. Like honestly, I think I'm more excited about playing Elden Ring to find out all the Ashes of Creation than I am Ashes of War, than I am to fight the bosses or just play the game. I just want to go in and
you
be
just want to see
like
cool builds.
I want to be a Pokemon collector. I want to catch them all basically, and then just like at the end of it, just wield. I want to be like a super heavy overweight guy, so that'll like fat roll because I'll be carrying all the weapons, all the shields, all the bows. I'll be like, I have 9 of these. Let's go.
The thing is that I don't think that they even count towards your weight, so you're fine. You can just like carry every. Because like there's a chest that they give you in the like Scythe of Grace thing that you can like put items in there and whatnot, but at least in previous games that's mostly for organizational purpose. It's like, okay, my inventory is getting messy. Let me take some of this stuff and put it in this box over here and never touch it again. Right? Yeah. It's like that's kind of how it's because it's like you can just carry anything that you want in these games. The only thing that really matters is what you have equipped. And I probably should have tested if the weapons that you aren't wielding affect weight. I don't think they do, because because you can equip like 6 weapons, but I think only the ones that you're wielding at the time count towards your weight to determine whether you're fat rolling, fast rolling, all of that stuff. Okay. Did you notice that, by the way?
I didn't actually know, because even when I got that like cool kind of strong armor set that you kind of pointed me towards, even that like I never encountered anything that kind of put me in the heavier weight category. But yeah, I'm just interested as well to sort of see the build sort of stacking potential as well, because for example, you've got the shield ability that heals. I'm hoping or betting that maybe there'll be like one that puts down like a damage buff circle. So I just want to see if there's like a setup where it's like damage buff circle on the ground, summon some swords around me, switch to something else, let the spirit summons keep it busy, and then charge up like a giant greatsword, and the enemy comes and it's just like bam, one hit.
You just want to like huddle up and get ready to tank, and then just like boom, just one shot. I want to do that
thing, like it's one of those like anime things where you spend like 10 minutes powering up
One Punch Man
to finally land that one hit, and it's like it was worth it, or I'll miss like a greatsword user, and then I'll just that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, potentially. That's definitely a thing. I'm curious, how much did you put into strength? If you remember, you put a lot of points into strength, right?
I think because I think at the end I even though I sunk like 10 hours in, I think because I died a lot, I kept on losing my runes. So I think I was only like level 13 at the end, but I think I put strength up to like 20 points. I think that's as high as it went. So
that's why you were able to equip that armor, because in this game, and this is actually not something that has happened in previous Souls games, strength is directly tied to your equipment load. So the more strength you put, the heavier armor you can wield, which makes sense, right?
It makes sense,
like,
yeah.
I'm stronger, I can wield heavier armor, but that was not the case in previous Souls games. Usually it would be like I don't even remember what the stats were, but like in the first one it was endurance, then in the second one I think there was another one called vitality or whatever. There's been a bunch of different stats that you've had to mess around in.
That is amazing. It's like have they just made this game for me? I'm just like, they're like, this guy likes using melee weapons, he likes being strong and rolling around, we'll give you everything you want and a jump button and some magical weapon abilities. Like, thank you.
So overall, like you've been mostly doing melee combat. How did you feel about like the combat and the challenge level that you encountered in the network test overall?
So that's an interesting one, because I'm newer to Souls games, and I will get bested by a lot of enemies that people will be like, this is not so bad. It takes me longer to kind of get through most bosses, let's put it that way. Yeah. I will say nothing really challenged me too much in this network test. Like I'll be interesting to like, I don't know whether that's because like a lot of the bosses that I encountered, I also used the spirit summons, which definitely helped me out. So there's definitely an element of that. Even when it came to like the guy in the castle, so the first time I fought him, he completely destroyed me. Then I went back a little bit later and I was stronger. I used the spirit summons, I used my weapon skills, and he died very, very quickly. So, I mean, admittedly, I feel like this is, we're we're probably only scratching the surface, like the very beginning stuff, which is like the tutorial flow. So I don't necessarily expect a lot of stuff to be like hyper challenging in this network test, but I will say that I think of all the things that I fought, the one that I died to most was probably that one in that circle arena, the one you point me towards. But I feel like I dived more. Yeah, but I feel like I dived more to that because I was just being stupid and trying to spam weapon skills. The second I started playing the game properly, it went down relatively easily. So, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I thought anything. I was like, oh, this is too easy. But at the same time, I didn't find anything. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dying like 20 times in a row. So,
I think that the spirit summons was the way that is something that they're using to basically say, hey, look, if the game is, if you're getting completely trounced, then you can use these spirit summons. They're going to help you out, and it's going to make things a little bit more manageable, particularly for people that potentially don't have, they're not paying for PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live in order to be able to summon other players to come help them. They can just resort to the summons, and that will be a big help. And by the way, I used summons on that boss as well. Screw that. That guy is way too fast. That boss was so fast.
But I'm also interested to see, because again, in the network test, it's very easy to look at the summons and be like, these are very strong. But then at the same time, I feel like later on there's going to come a point where, partly there are some areas where you can't use them, because obviously you go to some areas and you just can't summon them, so it's obviously not an option. So I'm sure there'll be some bosses where they're just like, no. And also, there are some, when I use them against the dragon, you might as well not bother, because the dragon's just like, fire, your walls are dead. So I do reckon they'll in the network test, they probably just want you to mess around with them. But I feel like once you get later in the game and you start fighting some of those mechanic-heavy story bosses, I honestly feel like they're just going to be like, spirit summons, shut up. And then just destroy them and be like, fight me like a man.
There was even a boss that I don't know if you've seen it, because this was after you defeat the big guy in the castle, because he's not the last thing. You can keep going after you kill him.
Oh, the weird little 6-armed thing in the prison.
No, it's not that. There's another one, because how the dude tells you, oh, you can come around the back or you can go in from the front, and then you go through the front, you get shot by ballista, and you're like, okay, I'm not going this way. You actually can go that way if you if you're quick at dodging and whatnot.
Oh.
You're able to actually go that way. That's not a hard thing where they're like, no, you can't go this way, go away. It's like, no, you can make through it, but it's going to be more challenging. If you go that way, there's actually, it's not even like a proper boss, but there's an enemy there, which is this lion thing with blades in his arms. And he just jumps on. He almost feels a little bit like Nargacuga. He jumps just all over the place, slashes stuff super fast.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing about that one was I tried using spirit summons on that one. And he's like, yeah, I don't care about that. He just slaughtered them all in seconds. And I was like, dude.
That is okay. That's good to hear then. Yeah. And I know, again, but also just from a collection point of view, again, I'm interested to see just how many there are as well, because they mentioned that obviously we've seen the basic ones. I tried using the sage guy. He didn't seem to do much. He was just out with his. He's sitting there with his walking stick, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Fire something, and he's like, phew. Thanks. But I reckon
the funny thing is, the first time I fought the dragon, I was like, okay, let me see. So we have these wolves. We have this. This guy's a spellcaster, dude. He's gonna be amazing against this dragon. I summon him, and he's just sitting there. I'm so old.
he was. When I fought the dragon, he was alive for so long because he wasn't even doing anything. I was like, what the hell? But
he was just like, oh yes, my young man, you're doing a fine job. Yes, kill that dragon.
He's the cheerleader instead. He's like, go, I'm rooting for you. No. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I reckon there will also be some super cool ones of those as well. So I am definitely, I think that's the thing. Just the sheer variety of things that you can collect and just use to enhance the way you play. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Dude, let me warn you ahead of time, okay? The Souls games, it's very hard to collect everything, okay? Because, and especially in this one, from what I can tell, because there's dynamic time of day, which was something that I was curious about. Because in previous Souls games, usually the way that time of day would advance, oh, you killed this boss, okay, we're going to move time forward now. The skybox is going to change, and all of these things happen because you've killed this boss. And time moves forward whenever you kill certain key bosses, right? In this game, time is always moving forward, and you can even just rest and advance time and whatnot. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's an enemy that I've only ever seen close to the place where you go and fight the caravan that has the big heavy armor and stuff. There's a bridge before you get there, remember?
Yeah.
So in that bridge, at nighttime, there is a black knight there.
Oh, I was about to ask, have you encountered anything that was only at certain times of day?
Yeah, exactly. So there was a black knight there, and that leads me to believe that what you're going to want to do in this game is you're going to want to talk to NPCs, and NPCs are probably going to tell you like, oh, sometimes at this time of day, something, something happens. Some of them might even give you quests. Not quests in the traditional sense where it's like, okay, here's a tracker and, go kill 5 of these. Like, they're not going to tell you that, but they might give you a quest where you hear the NPC and they'll go like, oh, man, sometimes this thing happens and there will be this dude over here. Then you go there and you kill him and then you can come back to the NPC and they'll be like, oh, you've killed him. Oh, this is amazing. Now do this, whatever, and then maybe you'll encounter that NPC later down the line and kind of like develops. The quests in this game are very organic. They're not gonna. I mean, and at least in previous Souls games, it's usually organic. They're not gonna straight up tell you, oh, here's a tracker to make sure that you know what you're doing. Here's the location of the NPC. You're gonna have to figure that stuff out for yourself.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's going to be certain events that are going to be limited at certain times of day or at certain times of day and after you defeat a certain boss or engage in a specific mechanic. So if you're planning on collecting everything, you have a lot of hours.
I probably won't, but I will go in with the intention of like I'm gonna want to explore to try and get as many cool things as I can. But that's cool though. I mean, it's gonna have so much replay value for that reason as well.
Yep, and there's going to be probably a lot of missable things. There's always missable things in Souls games, unfortunately. There's always a lot of events that you can end up missing out on, which is,
It's gonna be, someone's gonna be like, here's the coolest spirit weapon in the game. I've missed it. I'm like, no!
So you've done a significant amount of exploration. I would imagine you ran all over the place and whatnot. What was like one of the locations that you're like, okay, I really like this location, and like, why?
Let me think. Actually, probably towards the Murkwater catacombs. I dropped down and I ran through this cave. And firstly, there's like these glowing blue jellyfish, which are cool. And then you hit them, and they go red, and then I think they explode.
No, they just attack you.
Oh, okay, fair enough. And then afterwards, all the skeletons come out the ground, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, that was kind of cool. So I liked that area, but I think otherwise it was So my first encounter I call them the Colossus because they're like the Titans, but So
there's only one of them in this demo, I think.
Oh no, I don't mean the stone one. I mean the guys, the meaty guys with that no chest.
The fleshy,
Yeah, because they're like Titans from Attack on Titan. So the first one I saw is obviously when you go towards the castle, he's standing up there. So like I went and fought him. I was like, oh, this guy's must be pretty strong. And then suddenly I'm exploring later on. I get on top of the cliff and I find there's like 6 of them, and I'm like, let me just sneak around here. And there was actually that was super cool in that area as well. There was an item inside a stone pillar.
Yes.
But you had to get them to try and smash it. At least I assume that's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
They then killed me, and then I went back and got it later. But it wasn't even a good item, I don't think.
No. It was 6 smithing shards, which is how you upgrade your weapon.
Oh, okay. It wasn't good. I was just hoping that it was going to be like a cool weapon hidden in a stone. That's what I deem a cool item.
That's going to be the type of stuff that there's going to be a lot of. Like you even see in the gameplay reveal trailer how there's that vase thing that's just like stuck in the ground. It's please help me, and then your character just like swings a bat at him.
That was cool, yeah.
So that's going to be something that you can kind of expect a lot of, pretty much.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the network test experience. I don't know if there's anything else that you saw that you're like, oh, this one thing was really cool, or if you have like any questions that you're like, oh, how would this work like in previous games or something like that.
Honestly, no. I think that basically covered most of it. I think honestly, just like the sheer like anyone that is playing, just definitely just explore, because I feel like the magic you feel of just like discovering all these cool things is probably the thing that I just enjoyed the most. I mean, so much so that like I like when I did the first golden line thing, I kind of got to the boss, like he defeated me, and then I was like, then I went off and I was so focused on exploring, I completely forgot about him. I'd literally like done 10 hours. I was like, oh wait, I should probably go back and fight this guy now. Like he wasn't even a priority for me. I was just like, I'm just lost doing all this stuff. So yeah, honestly, I think that's the main thing for me. Like I've loved every minute of this, and if this is just like a small portion of the game, ooh, I cannot wait.
It has to be a small portion. Like I'm still blown away at just the amount, because like again this weekend I was super relaxed about it. I was like, I'm not even worried. I'm gonna log in at some point and just like, I'm gonna play like an hour, figure out what is there to see, make my video, and then suddenly I go on Twitter and I see a tweet by Peeve, and he's just going off like, oh yeah, I've played 16 hours. I'm going back in, and I was like, you've played you what? You've played 16 hours of a network test? There's something wrong with you? And then I jump in and I'm like, oh my God, what is? It's like I kind of feel sad for, a little bit sad for the people that are going to go in and they have like 3 hours to see as much as they possibly can, because I think that's the duration of the tests, right?
I think so, yeah. But I think they have like multiple windows, so, and the fact that you can keep your save file. So I'm hoping that
you get to keep your save file between tests.
Oh, I mean, I'm assuming so. I don't actually know that.
I just so.
I would just assume, because the way that like just Bandai Namco like network tester works in the past is like, when you jump in, you can, because they always have the different windows to try and hit different time zones, right? So but ultimately it's the same file. So I would assume that you can do that, but I hope
that you get to keep your character, because trying to see all of the stuff that we've seen this weekend in a 3-hour window is going to be friggin' insane.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting though, because it's one of those things where, I mean, obviously, ultimately no one's forcing you, like play what you want, or don't do what you want, but it's one of those magical things where like, I want to experience, you want to experience it in the test, but also you want to experience it in the full game.
I'll tell you right now, if I wasn't making content for it, I wouldn't have even touched it. I wouldn't have even watched the trailer. I was like, nope. That's what Epic Name Bro is doing. Epic Name Bro is actually just like, don't tell me anything. He's actually muted the words Elden Ring in Twitter. Yeah. He's just like, no, don't even, nothing. I don't want to hear anything about, I don't want to see trailers, nothing. And I was like, dude, that's great. That's going to be an amazing experience though, when you're playing it like that for the first time.
I'll also be interested to see, because I mean, I will be interested to see whether like everything that we play in the network test is laid out as it is, or whether they just like put a few things in there to like say, oh, here's a, whether there's going to be like all that stuff.
I'll tell you right now, there's no way that in the final game, and if this happens, I'll be like, okay, this is completely out of character for From Software. But I'll tell you right now that there's probably no way that you're going to go up in the final game, go up to that caravan. It's like, here's a full set of heavy armor and a great sword that has a really beefy friggin' weapon. I don't think that's happening like that. Especially because like getting that thing is so easy. I'll just kill one of the giants, go through the back, pick it up, boom, go.
I mean, I won't complain, because I like the armor set and the weapon. So if they're going to let me have it, I'll be happy, but you're probably right.
And not only that, but like you're also not going to go into like those mime things that I showed you and just like, I'm just going to kill this guy. Now I have this overpowered like katana that just destroys it. Because that katana is broken, dude. That katana is friggin' broken. It shreds everything. Like I killed the dragon in almost no time using that thing.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I just went up to him, slashed them up. It's like, yep, boom, done. You're good. See ya.
Oh, wow. Okay. Damn.
Because that thing also applies like status ailments and whatnot, which is something that I guess you probably didn't experience that much in this. There was some poison. There were some poison plants. I don't know if you saw them.
Yeah, I got poisoned by that. Yeah. I just brute forced it and healed my way through it.
Oh, actually, that was something that I mean to ask you. How did you distribute your flasks throughout most of your experience? Just out of curiosity.
For the majority of it, until you told me about the Ashes of War, I was 4 flasks in healing, nothing in anything else. Then I was like, oh, Ashes of War, quite cool. Let me have 1 flask of mana, and then or FP, and then that was But I definitely feel like, because also like some of them don't use too much as well, so I felt like that worked for me, because I definitely need my healing potions. Although one thing I did actually like as well. Sorry, just to interject. Like I remember as well. Obviously, I mean, correct me again if I was wrong, but like I'm pretty sure, like in previous Souls games, like the only way to refill your flask is to sit at the base, the bonfire, right? Whereas in this one, there were 2 tutorial things where it was like, if you defeat like a group of enemies that's considered a group, sometimes you will get a flask refill. And also, when I found a red teardrop scarab or a dung beetle, that refilled them as well. So I guess given the open nature and that you might be further between things, they're giving you a few more ways to stock up.
There's another way to get flasks, but it's kind of like it's a way that not everybody experiences. But basically, when you are near a bonfire in previous games, and somebody kindles the last bonfire you rested at, you get a potion.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and I think that there was also a mechanic like this is just like so long ago I don't remember. But if you put down a message that is useful, and somebody rates that message, I think you also get a flask.
Oh, that's nice.
So there are ways of getting flasks back, but it's not reliable at all. But yeah, the replenishing flasks but the one thing that I'm a little bit sad about is that there is the mechanic, like you said, of replenishing flasks where you kill a group of enemies or sometimes just like a really strong enemy. So like if you kill one of the big ones in certain locations where there's only like one of those big ones, he'll also restock your flask. If you killed a horse guy, restocks your flask. So there are several things that will restock your flasks. But the thing that made me a little bit sad is that it doesn't work on dungeons.
Oh, okay.
So like if you go to the Legacy dungeon, which is Stormvale Castle, like the big main story dungeon, like I just ran around and just destroyed everything just to test that, and I didn't get a single flask refill, and I was like, oh.
I guess it makes sense. I guess it's kind of the open world nature, right? It's like if you're going to spend time roaming the open world, they're just like, so you don't have to feel you have to run back to a site of grace. It's probably the mechanic.
But it's like, it's a really, really positive thing in my opinion, because otherwise you might think, oh, do I really want to risk fighting this group? Then I'm going to waste my resources and then I don't get to explore further. So you'd have to make that choice. Either I explore more or I engage in combat now, but potentially then I have to go rest. And in this game, it's like, no, if you engage in combat, you do well, we'll give you flasks and you can keep going until you eventually go into a dungeon. But, you know, going into a dungeon, at least at the entrance of every single dungeon, there's always a side of lost grace. So you can just like refill your flasks at the entrance. And, you know, the game is fairly good at doling out checkpoints between the sites of grace and the statues of Marika. So that was cool.
Definitely. Yeah.
Did you try out the flask of wondrous physique at all?
No, I don't think I even encountered that at all.
So it's a special flask, which as you play through the game, you're going to unlock reagents. Which, interestingly enough, it was when I was telling you about different things in the game, I noticed that you picked up an item that I hadn't seen yet. And that item was a reagent for that flask. And the way that works is like, this is a unique flask, and then you just mix things in there. You can mix two things, and the flask will have like, you know, the effect of those two things combined. And the four things that we had in this was mana, health, temporary stamina boost, and explosion.
Explosion?
Yeah. So I didn't even test this. I assumed when I saw explosion, I didn't bother testing it, but I assumed it's like, oh, explosion. This probably transforms the flask into a grenade and you like throw it or something. But no, your character actually drinks the flask and you explode.
As in you die?
No, it just deals a chunk of damage to you, but it deals damage to everything around you.
That is amazing. Just imagine like, huh, bam.
Yeah, when I first saw that, because Peeve did that on me, and I was like, "What the hell is that? That's so weird."
That's so good. That is so
yeah,
good.
but there's some really cool and experimental stuff, and basically, I can't wait to get my hands on the final game.
Yeah,
that's just the way that it goes.
It's gonna be amazing.
Anyway, that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, hit up with a like button. Helps out a lot. There's going to be more Elden Ring content here on the channel. There's also going to be Elden Ring content on Arekkz' channel, which is going to be linked in the description box below. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe,
and see you later.